Hello, my name is Courtney Richardson, and I'm going to be doing a presentation on electrocardiograms and the cardiac event correlations. So let's first go over the general anatomy of the heart. So we have the superior vena cava right here, right atrium. We have the tricuspid valve here, the right ventricle, and the inferior vena cava, both going into the right atrium, then through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle, out the right ventricle through the pulmonary valve into the pulmonary artery. And then on this side, we have the pulmonary vein into the left atrium, mitral valve here, and then that goes into the left ventricle. And then we have the aortic valve right here, and the blood leaves the heart through the aorta. Okay, let's get started. So electrocardiograms, also known as electrocardiographs, the same thing. They can be abbreviated as an ECG or more commonly EKG. And the K is a representation of electrocardiogram spelt with a K due to the origins of the word in German. So that's why where the K comes from. Electrocardiograms it's a form of testing that is done to record the electrical signals within the heart to test for different heart conditions. So we have electrodes that are placed on the chest and then record electrical signals that the heart generates as it pumps. And then those are monitored on a computer or printed out for your physician to analyze. So here we have a picture of an electrocardiogram in process. Here are the electrodes on the upper chest. And we have our machine here. And here is our graph that we see. Okay, so let's get into the cardiac cycle. The cardiac cycle is the period of time that begins with the contraction of the atria and ends with the relaxation of the ventricles. The systole is the contraction period in which the heart pumps blood into circulation around the body, and the diastole is the period of brief relaxation while chambers fill with blood. Both of the atria and ventricles are in a relaxed state in diastole. Blood flows from both the superior and inferior vena cava, as well as the coronary sinus, into the right atrium. The four pulmonary veins supply the left atrium with blood. Blood flows without interruption from atria into ventricles when both atrioventricular valves are open, and that fills roughly to 70 to 80%. Both of the pulmonary and aortic semilunar valves remain closed to prevent backflow of blood. The depolarization causes the contraction of cardiac muscle and is represented by the P wave in the electrocardiogram, which you can see right about here. Atrial muscles contract toward the tricuspid and mitral valves. During diastole, the ventricles are filled to about 70 to 80% capacity. And then the atrial contraction provides that last 20 to 30% of blood, and then completes the filling of the ventricles to 100%. So the stage of ventricular systole follows the depolarization of the ventricles and represents the QRS complex on an electrocardiogram. As the muscles in the ventricle contract, the pressure of blood within the chambers is not initially high enough to open those semilunar valves. However, blood pressure rises quickly above the atria, which are in diastole. This causes the blood to flow back toward the atria and closes the tricuspid and mitral valves. During the ventricular ejection phase, the contraction of ventricular muscles causes the pressure to rise within the ventricle to a level greater than the pressure in both the pulmonary trunk and the aorta. So then blood is pumped out of the heart and pushes on the aortic and pulmonary semilunar valves, which causes them to open. So here we have a great graph that shows the atrial depolarization, ventricular depolarization, and the repolarization of the ventricles. And this is also a great graph. I really like this one because it combines everything together. We have the heart sounds, and we have ventricular volume over here that you can see, and we have our pressure right here, and what that looks like on an electrocardiogram. And you can follow that along to see everything that's going on, and also that sound that we can hear, and how that correlates with the different phases of the cardiac cycle. Okay, so ventricular relaxation follows the repolarization of the ventricles, and this is represented as the T wave on an electrocardiogram. The ventricular muscles relax, and the pressure on the ventricles remaining blood falls. So once the pressure within the ventricle falls below the pressure in the pulmonary trunk and aorta, the blood flows back into the direction of the heart, causing a noticeable but small dip in blood pressure tracings, known as the diacritic notch. And our semilunar valves close to prevent any backflow into the heart. There is no change of volume of blood within the ventricle, but as the pressure on the blood within the ventricle drops, it eventually falls below the pressure levels in the atria. Blood then flows from the atria into the ventricles, opening the tricuspid and mitral valves. Blood flows into the major veins in the relaxed atria and then into the ventricles. And on this side, we have another great chart that shows this deoxygenated blood coming back, going to the lungs, and then returning from the lungs in this red color representing blood containing oxygen, and then how it is then pumped out of the heart through the aortic trunk and down to the rest of the body through the descending aorta. And here are my references. Thank you for listening to my presentation.